Let's talk about the number line. So first, let's look at the number line that we've been given and see how it's divided up. So from here to here is from 0 to 1, obviously. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Don't count those. There are 4 of those. But count the spaces in between them. There are 5 spaces. So everything is divided up into fifths. If it helps, you can write it down that way. So this is a fifth. This is 2 fifths. This is 3 fifths. That's 4 fifths. And this is 5 fifths. So you could say that's 5 fifths, which is equal to 1. I'm not going to put that, though. Let's erase that. So let's start by labeling some points. Just for a point of clarification here, that is J, because it comes after I, but the font didn't work quite well. That happens on the back side of this paper as well. So that is a J right there. Okay, I want to put a dot at 1/5, and it is positive 1/5, so we're over here. That one should be fairly obvious, I think. So we will put our first dot here, and we will call this dot A because this was problem A. So now we need to go to negative 1/5. So we're going to be on this side, and we're going to count the same way here. So if we're going by fifths, this is a fifth, this is 2 fifths, this is 3 fifths, and this is 4 fifths. But when I'm going this direction, of course, I'm counting negative. So this was actually negative 1/5, negative 2 fifths, negative 3 fifths, negative 4 fifths, negative 5 fifths. Again, 5 over 5 is 1. So I think B should be relatively simple to place now. There we go. Okay, we come to point C, and we want to put a dot at a half, and we don't really know where that is. So it's somewhere in between 0 and 1, and obviously it's halfway in between 0 and 1. But it doesn't fall exactly on what I call a tick mark or a hash mark. So it doesn't really fall exactly on that. So now the question is, where is 1/2? Now, you can sort of eyeball it if you want to, and you can say, well, halfway in between here and here is here, and you'd be right. But this also comes in handy when you're trying to figure out which fraction is bigger. I need to know where 1/2 fits with the rest of these, so it may come in handy to divide this up into actually not even fifths but tenths. So even though we know where it is, just for the sake of explanation later, when we get to some more complicated ones like that one, then I'm going to go ahead and do this one using a common denominator. So I have denominators of 5 and I have a denominator of 2. So here's what I really need to do. I need to turn everything into a denominator of 10. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper. And on that scrap piece of paper, I'm going to write down 1/2. And I'm also going to write down these. So 1/5, 2 fifths, 3 fifths, 4 fifths. And I want to know where 1/2 fits in. Again, we know it, but we're going to do this for when they get harder, we'll know the process. So the common denominator between all of these is 10, because 2 goes into 10 and 5 goes into 10, and that's the smallest thing that they go into. So how do I turn a 2 into a 10? Well, I'll multiply by 5, so 1 times 5 gave me 5. And then I'll go through this process here. So 5 times 2 gives me 10, so 1 times 2. 5 times 2 gives me 10, so 2 times 2. 3 times 2, 4 times 2. Okay, so now we realize that these are out of order. They're drastically out of order, so let's put them in order. 2, 4, 5, 6, 8. So obviously 5 tenths comes between 4 tenths and 6 tenths, and it is exactly halfway in between them. Therefore, we know mathematically where this point falls. So we're going to put a dot right there. We're going to call that dot C. Okay? So let's do this one. 3/2. Well, hold on now. 3/2 is not, first of all, it has a denominator 2. Second of all, it's an improper fraction. So let's do it this way. This probably happens in your head. 3 divided by 2 is the same thing as saying 2 goes into 3 one time. 1 times 2 is 2. We subtract and we get a 1. This is 1 and 1/2. 3/2 is 1 1/2. If I have a box and another box, and I have 3 halves of them full, then I have half full, the other half full, and another half full. I have filled up 1.5 boxes. So this, right up here, is equivalent to 1.5. So I need to put a dot at 1.5. Well, that's between 1 and 2, and it's halfway in between 1 and 2, and I'm not going to get too meticulous with this in terms of labeling the rest of these. So I'm going to just go ahead and put my dot halfway in between 1 and 2, and it is right there. And I'll call that one D. Okay? Let's label E. E should be pretty straightforward because we already have a number there. Now we get to F. So F is also improper. And so, again, this can happen in your head, but just be careful. So 6/5. Let's see. 6 divided by 5 is the same as, well, 5 into 6. 5 goes into 6 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. So it leaves me 1 left over. I have 1 and 1/5. Positive 1 and 1/5. So I'm going to go past 1, and I'm going to go a fifth more. And each mark is a fifth. So this is 1 and 1/5. Right here, that is the same as 6/5. This is letter F. Okay? Negative 6/5. Same as this. I'm going to go ahead and just write this one the same way we write this one. This one's 1 and 1/5. This one is 1 and 1/5, only it's negative. So instead of going this way, we're going to go this way. So the same distance we went to go forward, we now go backwards. I'm going to go to -1, and then I'm going to go a fifth more, and so that is the letter G. Okay, I need 3/4. Whoa, now it's getting interesting. 3/4. My numbers, my denominators don't have that. Okay, I know 3/4 is bigger than a half. So here's the deal. I know that 3/4 is somewhere over here. How do I know? Here it goes. If I ate 3/4 of a bowl of oatmeal, 3/4 of a cup of oatmeal, I didn't eat 1. I ate more than 0. And 3/4 is bigger than a half. So it's somewhere in between C and 1. Now I want to know exactly where it is. So let's do the same process again. I'm going to go ahead and just rank it in terms of this one and this one. I know that 3/5 and 4/5 and 3/4 are the ones I'm trying to put in order. Now, I know the order of these, but I need this one as well. Let's get a common denominator. That common denominator, let's see, what does 5 go into that 4 also goes into? That would be 20. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 3 times 4 is 12. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16. 4 goes into 20 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. So this one actually belongs in between them. So if I was going to put them in order, I'd have 12 over 20, 15 over 20, and 16 over 20. Now, let's look at the numbers, though. These are closer together than these are. Now, I didn't space them very well, but 15 is closer to 16 than 15 is to 12. So, knowing that this, sorry, I pointed at the wrong one, this one is the same as 4/5, and this is the same as 3/5, I know that this one, 3/4, comes in between them, but it doesn't come halfway in between them. It comes closer to this side. If you want to get technical about it, it comes, let's see, there are 3 spaces between these, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 15, 16. There's 1 space here. I'm just doodling what happens in my head. You don't have to write this. So I know that if I split up this gap between these two right here, if I split it into 4 spaces, 4 even spaces, then I would have 12 twentieths, 13 twentieths, 14 twentieths, 15 twentieths. This right here is H. Okay? -7/5. Let me get another scrap piece of paper. I'm running out of room on this one. -7/5. Let's ignore the negative for just a second, and we're going to go 5 into 7. 5 goes into 7 one time with 2 left over. 1 times 5 is 5. We'll subtract and we get a 2. 1 and 2/5. It is negative, however. -1 and 2/5. So we're going to go this direction with it. Starting at 0, we go -1. We go back another fifth. That's -1 and a fifth. This is -1 and another fifth, so 2/5. Here we go. This is I. This is where I goes. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to write down what that really was. That's -1 and 2/5. All right, -1 1/2. So I need to go back 1, and I need to go half again. So I'm halfway in between these, and I believe we can find that one relatively easy. So halfway in between would be right here. Whoops, put that in the wrong color. There we go. This one is J. And everything is in the right place now. Okay, I'm going to do the bottom one, and then the back side is up to you. So let's do this. First, we notice that they're spaced differently. Let's look at this number line and compare it to the previous one. The previous number line was broken up into fifths. This one is broken up into 1, 2, 3 fourths. If it helps, you can do it that way. Write it down. So 1/4, 2/4. Oh wait, 2/4? Let's reduce that. 2 divided by 4 is the same as a half. 3/4, 1. I'm going to keep going. 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 3/4. We're going up by fourths every time. And again, 1/2 is 2/4. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 1. 1 1/4, 1 2/4, 1 3/4, 2. Let's go backwards. -1 1/4, sorry. -1/2, -3/4, -1, -1 1/4, -1 1/2. That's all the room we have. Let's put these dots down. Okay, 3/4 is point K. -1/4 is point L. 5/4 is an improper fraction. Let's fix it. 5/4 is the same as saying, well, 4 goes into 5. 4 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. We subtract and we get a 1. We have 1 1/4. And I believe we know where that is. 1 1/4. And that is right here. That is point M. -3/2. Let's do that one. You can probably do this one in your head. 3 divided by 2 is the same as saying 2 goes into 3 one time. We did this one on the previous problem, actually. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract. 3 minus 2 is 1. We have 1 1/2. It is negative, however. So -1 1/2. That one's fairly obvious to spot. -1 1/2. There we go. Put some equal marks there. So here is letter N. Okay, now we get to some crazy ones. 1/8. This isn't broken up into eighths. Let's fix it then. Another scrap piece of paper. I want to know where 1/8 goes. Well, 1/8 is smaller than 1. If I have a 1/8 inch wrench, I have something that is smaller. My wrench is smaller than an inch. So it's going to be in here. 1/8 makes it kind of small. So let's put it in perspective here. I'm going to rank, just picking some. I'm going to rank 1/4, 1/2, and 1/8. Let's put them in order. 1/4, 1/2. Now I know which order these are in, and 1/8. Let's put them in order. I need a common denominator. The common denominator is, let's see, what does 4 go into that 2 goes into? Well, 4. What about 8? Well, 8 doesn't go into 4. 4 is too small, so we'll go up to 8. 8 goes into 8. 2 goes into 8. 4 goes into 8. Everything turns into an 8 in the denominator. I would double this one, so double the top. I would quadruple this one, so I quadruple the top. This doesn't change, so that doesn't change. Let's put them in order. 1/8 is first. 2/8 is next. 4/8 is third. These are not spaced evenly or spaced proportionally. 1/8, 1/4, 1/2. This is the correct order. That tells me this. 1/8 is less than a fourth. Now, obviously, it's bigger than 0, so we're in here. I'll go ahead and tell you, we're halfway in here because this is the same as 2/8. 1/8, 2/8. This dot right here is O. All right, let's think about this logically. Every half space is an eighth. So as I look at the rest of these that end in an 8, I'm going to just count half spaces. 5/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/8, which makes sense. 5/8 is bigger than a half. Notice that I passed 1/2. All right? 11/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 eighths. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 8, 9, 10, 11 eighths. That would be the letter Q. It looks like an O, but it's actually a Q. The bottom of it got chopped off. There we go. By the way, one random thought on this. 8 goes into 11 one time with 3 left over. It's 1 3/8. There we go. 1 and 1, 2, 3/8. 1/16. Whoa, okay. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the portions are. So if this, let's grab the pencil. If this is 1/8, then 1/16 is even smaller than that. So 1/16 is this tiny little thing down in here. And since, this is going to get wordy, but since 16 is twice as big as an eighth, then 1/16 is half the size of 1/8. So here goes. 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16. 4 out of 16 is the same as a fourth. The fractions are the same. So R is right here. Okay? S, 5 out of 10. What? 5 out of 10? Let's get a common denominator. No, stop. Don't get a common denominator. You don't need a common denominator. Here's what you need to do. You need to look at that and say 5 goes into itself one time, 5 goes into 10 twice. If you can reduce it, you do reduce it. 1/2. There you go. No need to make your life more complicated. This is S right here. Okay? Letter T. -7/8. Remember, since we're on a scale of a fourth, if we take half of a fourth, we have an eighth. I'm going to write down what I just said. If I take half of a fourth, if I multiply those, I'd have an eighth. Every half mark is an eighth. Let's go back 7/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Right there. And that is T. Okay, I've done the front. The back is up to you. Keep in mind that some of the J's got chopped off a little bit, so be careful with those. They look like I's, but they're really J's. You know the alphabet, so you can figure it out. There you go.